All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to yet another dreary episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show. We are your hosts. I am Alex Baquero, and this is Chris Sleep Number Condit, your American villain voices, as always, serving up the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions. Everyone, please go in these trying times, like, follow, rate, review, subscribe, all the places below our faces. It's really nice to be able to do that in a rhyming plurality once again. Chris, you missed the one jubilant pod that we've had in probably about a quarter year.
I did.
How was that for you?
I realized after the pod came out that I didn't tell any members of my family that we had any sort of plumbing issue. So everybody was texting me saying what happened at the house, because I mean, I've reached an age where I can just deal with stuff, like it is what it is. I don't need to text my parents, my parents in their 70s that things are happening at my house that I can fix or at least deal with. Right. So I
didn't think I'd be outing you like that.
I got many texts. Well, not many. I got multiple texts. What happened at the house? Is everything all right? But no, it was great. We were about to do the pod. We were probably like, I don't know, half hour away or so, and hour away, I don't know. And I came downstairs from putting one of my kids to bed, and there was just water pouring down from the second floor into the first floor master closet, which is not a pleasant place to be. So I had to deal with that instead of doing the pod. I would have much rather talked about the win, albeit narrow, over Lille, because now we're here and we have to talk about this. And I just want to point out that I once again took a drink. I didn't take it to the face because it's very good wine. I took a drink because Villa are driving me to drink. I can't do this. I can't do this for the rest of the season. We need something. This is terrible. How are you, Alex?
Bad, Chris. So many things are bad. The lack of sleep is bad. The fact that I need to go back to work on Tuesday is bad. Villa is also driving me to drink. Our run of form is bad.
Abysmal.
I love talking to you, and I love seeing you, man, but I really don't like doing this podcast over the past couple months. Like this has crossed the line from being cathartic. And maybe I've said this before. I don't know. I'm not even sure that I'm actually physically here doing this podcast right now, but let's pretend that I am. And I think I've said before that quite often in trying times of Aston Villa, coming on and being able to talk with you, talk to our listeners and get that kind of engagement has been cathartic for me. It's nice to have an outlet. To talk about this team in this point in this season, man, this is a slog. This is bad. This is up there with some of relative to expectations. I would say this is up there with some of the most trying times that we have had as Villa fans. And maybe in my exhaustion, that is me not necessarily being lukewarm. But again, I want to caveat as saying, like, obviously there have been worse Villa teams in the 25, 30 years that I've been a fan of this club, in the 20 to 30 years that you've been a fan of this club, right? Like we got effing relegated. But relative to the expectations that the team had set, it is hard to find a stronger deviation from that than what we're going through right now, in my opinion.
The relative to expectation is a key point that you made, because we're still sitting fourth, I think, after results.
Barely, yes. Yeah. Due to the ineptitude of teams around us, yes,
right.
We are.
I mean, I understand that, but they are not as inept as we are. But they've, Chelsea and Liverpool have both had their fair share of rough patches this year too, right? So the level of expectation is important, but I think the most difficult thing is that Villa are not doing anything particularly well at the moment, at least not for 90 minutes. And especially in attack, they are just remaining very inept and very unable to penetrate anything. And even when they get opportunities, they can't string passes together, or they can't take a shot. In one player in particular comes to mind there, where he continues to get moments where he has opportunities and just refuses to shoot the ball. And we'll talk about that later on in the pod, I'm sure. But and then eventually the same thing happens every week, and teams find a weakness. There were multiple moments in this game against United where they were easily able to break down the defense, easily able to get past Bogard and Kansa, and it became increasingly less difficult to score goals, particularly in the second half. I thought, if we want to talk about the overarching elements of this game, I actually thought Villa started well. Man United settled in, and Villa defended relatively well for the first half and were relatively well organized. But then the second half, the wheels fell off, and Villa never really threatened goal outside of, like the time that Watkins didn't shoot comes to mind. There was the header by Mings that he weirdly turned backwards and tried to flick it for some reason. Those were about the two best chances that I remember for Villa.
Onana firing right at
Yep.
Lamens,
That's right.
I guess.
Yep. So again, the same problems present. Lack of ability, or lack of finishing, or lack of real threat in front of goal. Defensively, just huge lapses in spacing, positioning, and tracking. And I can't really fault Bogard, because I actually thought he played pretty well for 45 minutes. But in the second half, he was very clearly the player they were targeting, and he and Kansa were just not at all on the same page. There were just massive spaces between the two of them to operate, and they didn't seem to understand what each other was doing on the pitch. So it led to just tons of opportunities for United in the second half. Now, can we be done?
Good summation of everything that we're going to talk about, and we probably should just move on from there. But alas, we will not, because we have dead air that we need to fill, Chris. So let's start with the tactical setup and approach. Barkley, rare start, and Tyrone Mings, for whatever reason, rotating in for Pau Torres. I did not understand the Mings one in particular. You and I have been saying maybe Barkley deserves a start. Douglas Luiz obviously did not play much football over the first half of this year, and then has played God knows how many games back to back since coming in January. So, I do think that there is probably some reason to give him a rest, and we do think highly of Ross Barkley as a rotational piece. But Tyrone Mings, I don't understand. With Brian Mbeumo starting immediately up top, Shesko, I think, is a bit more physical of a presence. But, Bogard, Konsa, Pau, and Luka Dean just had a clean sheet. Why are you messing with that back four in this one? I don't. And it's not that Mings has been in getting clean sheets left and right. I feel like we're giving up more goals when Mings starts than when Pau does at this point.
I think the funny thing is here that Emery makes changes, but not the change that I think everybody is looking at and saying is most necessary. So I think you have a couple of problems with the back four. One that you can't help. But Mings getting the start here didn't make sense to me either. It's not as if Mbeumo is this big physical player that is going to overpower you. It's not Erling Haaland, for example. I think with Bogard out there at the right, you're going to be limited two ways, and I'll get into that later. But just so to piggyback off of what you were saying, Mings, I wouldn't have started. I would have started Pau. I think Pau is a better fit there. We're much more comfortable playing forward with Pau, as we've talked about a million times. The other issue, without Matty Cash out there, and you saw this rear its head over and over and over again, actually more so in attack than defense in the first 45. It came up in the second half defensively, but in the first 45, everything was down the left-hand side, and you had absolutely no width to the right. The entire pitch might as well have been tilted to the left because Bogard was not going to come forward. He doesn't feel comfortable coming forward in that way. That's not the position he plays, where Matty Cash always offers you that additional width on the right. But so Villa once again became extremely easy to defend. And we saw on multiple occasions, they were creating the triangles they want to create on the touch line on the left, but they were so tightly spaced together, and there was no rotation to the other side of the field of the pitch because everybody kind of shifts to the left where the ball is. So again, we're talking about the same issue. You're cutting off a quarter of the pitch that the opponent doesn't need to worry about defending, and that is a problem. When the ball doesn't move that quickly, and everybody is covering, everybody is inside of one area of the pitch, it's going to be difficult to score, and it was.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, Bogard. And listen, I think, to be clear to everybody, this is not us knocking Bogard. That's not his game. This is not his best position. We understand that he is best served in this team as a defensive midfielder, so he is filling in. But this is ultimately something that Unai Emery, the manager, needs to figure out how to tactically get around if he's going to have to shoehorn a player in to that right back spot that isn't going to offer that moving forward. Chris, you are right that Villa started brightly, but by the 12th minute, in retrospect, I almost feel like we should have seen this coming, because 10th minute, you have that god-awful free kick that Villa take, where they talk around the ball for 5 minutes and then they try to slip a ball through to someone who's immediately offsides.
Yep.
And by the 12th minute, Unai Emery tried something a little interesting, where he actually gave Amadou Onana more room to roam, gave him the left-sided DM, said, go be the 8, go attack, and Ross Barkley, you're going to sit. And we could come up with any one of a number of justifications for why he would do that, but at least he tried something new. And by 12 minutes, he just abandoned it and was like, hey, you guys switch back. Ross Barkley, you're going to roam. Amadou Onana, you're going to sit. And you and I both think that Onana is not best served being that holding midfielder. He is much more effective when he has the ability to roam forward, pick passes, create, be a little bit more offensive. But if the team is going to show up,
team in goals right now, or third,
probably, if the team is going to be that confused by minute 10, and Unai Emery is going to abandon any new thoughts by minute 12, how can we hope for anything to change at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. Really, we shouldn't have been super surprised at this result, because United are in a purple patch, and it was away, but really, they talked about it on the broadcast. Old Trafford was silent in the first half because there wasn't a lot to go on, and that is famously a ground where if there's not a lot happening, it gets very quiet very quickly. And so Villa needs to take advantage of that, right, and press the action and play forward and try to score goals in numbers, because United have a deeper bench, they have more players, they have injuries, sure, but they have a bigger budget to spend on players, at least for the time being, and that allows for substitutions like we saw today. So I'm frustrated that
apparently, Chris, they have a more tactically astute manager too.
Well, at least right now.
Let's give Michael Carrick a ton of credit here for this one, by the way, because first half, United's attack on Villa was, we're going to get the ball wide and swing in dangerous cross after dangerous cross. And it was hugely effective. They took really good advantage of the open spaces down Villa's wings, and probably should have been 2-0 up by the 37th minute when Dallo skied over at that point. Had a free shot at net, skied over. So it's not like Villa were ever really in this game creating anything. By half, Villa had 2 shots, none on target, whereas United could have had probably 3 or 4. And then all of a sudden he switches. So, Villa adapt to that style a little bit. They're able to hold out through the half. And then all of a sudden in the second half, he's like, we're going to send runners from deep over and over and over again. And we're not going to let you offside trap us because that guy is going to come from 10 yards deeper than where your back line is. And we know that your back line isn't going to communicate. That's how Cunha got his goal. Was there was an initial runner, got the Villa defense to step up and jump. And then that's when he bolted through the line and got that beautiful through ball from Bruno Fernandes. It was naive Route 1 stuff that broke Unai Emery down in the second half. Like, he didn't have an answer all game long.
Yeah, so like the interesting thing that you're saying there is that there's a blueprint that was relatively easy to come up with to beat that high line offside trap, whatever we want to call it. So I think, I mean, I hate to say it, that sitting in fourth, that you have to go back and figure it out, but you got to go back and figure it out here, because this is how many defeats in a row, in the league, or at least games without a win. It's getting bad, but for the fact that everybody else has been just as inept at different points in the season, including this one, including right now. Villa would not be in this position. So I don't even know that it's necessarily like the overperforming of XG that everybody talked about early in the season. It's just not even creating opportunities, let alone expected goals. But when those opportunities come up, I have to talk about it. Ollie Watkins, again, gets a golden opportunity where he's 1v1 plus the keeper. So it's not 1v1 on the keeper, but he's 1v1 plus the keeper. And he doesn't even get a shot off because he just dribbles the ball into oblivion and into defenders. So it's like, this is a man lacking any kind of confidence who just will not take a shot. And I can't have it. I can't have it.
He got stolen off the dribble one-on-one with Harry Maguire. He got stolen off the dribble one-on-one with Lenny Yoro. Not making the right runs. He's not holding the ball up.
When he was offside by 3 yards and then booted the ball toward the net for a yellow card.
Yeah, got the dumbest yellow of all time.
But Ian is, 3 yards offside. He's not even close.
Yeah.
Man, at least attempt to get back on side. He didn't. So I realize that I'm kind of piling on here, but we said at the beginning of the year, and we've said it multiple times throughout this season, you can't be successful if you don't get production from your number 9. And it doesn't matter what level of football you're playing. If you don't have a number 9 that scores or assists or both, you're not going to be successful in the long run. And now we are seeing that come to fruition.
You're 100% right. I think as you look through the rest of the team, to kind of take this off Ollie Watkins for a sec, because he's bad. He's coming into a lot of criticism and deservedly so. The rest of the team seems as mentally fatigued as I am right now dealing with a newborn. Yep. It feels like while you watch this, they're playing in mud compared to whoever the opposition is. Every pass, every turn is a step too slow. You miss open runners because you take 1 or 2 too many touches on the ball. This happened in a number of sequences in the first half. I think it was around the 28th minute. Amadou Onana gets the ball fairly close to our box, takes 1 or 2 touches before he releases a totally free and open Ross Barkley, gets it to Luka Dean, 1 too many touches before he gets to McGinn in the middle. And then I think McGinn spins on it and takes like 3 touches to turn around on it. And so he totally misses a wide open through ball run that could have gone to, I think it was Morgan Rogers, might have been Emi Buendia on the right-hand side, that would have put Villa in on goal. And that to me is just emblematic of this team right now. They seem tired, they seem worn out, they seem fatigued, and they don't seem to really have much fire to try and get through it right now.
The goal they scored was beautifully well worked. Like, that's the one positive, right?
By the way, everyone can shut up about us not getting big six calls anymore, right?
So I texted you while it happened. That was I was shocked that it didn't get pulled back only because we were up against the Big Six, right? But to the point that you and I have made before, it's not necessarily a bias. It's just incompetence. But in this case, I actually thought it was good process because I texted you, I think whatever had been called on the field, on the pitch, would have stayed because none of it was conclusive, right? So if it stood on the pitch, it has to stand. If it didn't stand on the pitch, it can't stand. That was the way I saw it. Not a single one of the instances was conclusive at all. So you have to let it go, whatever was called initially, which was goal. But that was a really nice passage of play. And by the way, that passage of play, I was excited because Leon Bailey kind of looked like Leon Bailey of old, and I thought we were going to get something out of him this game, and we did for about 5 minutes, and then that was it.
Errors leading to goals, Chris. I'll ask you about the three of these. First goal, Emi Martinez, I don't think can get beat from that angle on a header. Second goal was Cunha. So you can look at Leon Bailey with the turnover, and you can look at Ezri Konsa for getting mad at Leon Bailey and not picking up the runner, instead throwing up his hands to yell at his teammate. And then the third goal, you look at Bogard getting rinsed the ball at him, and then basically passing it to Šeško, who turns around and finishes it. I mean, and then, let's rewind to the first Manchester United game when I think it was Matty Cash gets dispossessed by Cunha in the box, who fires high past Emi Martinez. If you're gonna be as bad as Villa are in just other facets of the game, you sure as hell can't shoot yourself in the foot repeatedly like this and figure out how to get out of matches with any points.
Yeah, I thought it was a little harsh to pick on Martinez on the first goal, but I can see it, because he's off his line in such a way that he was unable to make the save on that header. And I think that you would expect him to do better. I think that's fair. The second goal was Cunha with Konsa yelling at Leon Bailey, right? That was the second one. So I thought Bailey with the turnover is bad. I thought Konsa was worse. And
I agree.
I'll go back to Jurgen Klinsmann, a coach that everyone knows that I admire in a lot of ways. But the biggest thing that he said when he was with the U.S. men's national team was, you don't protest on the pitch. You don't ask for offside. You don't ask for penalties. You don't ask for fouls. You don't yell at your teammates. You just move on and play, and then deal with it after the fact. We don't play, or we don't stop playing because we're upset about something. We keep playing, and then we will deal with whatever after the whistle. That was one of the biggest things that he tried to ingrain, successfully or not, I don't know, but tried to ingrain in the men's national team here in the U.S. when he was the coach. And I always appreciated that, because I understand it. As a man who likes to argue with officials, I understand the the temptation there. But I also think the smarter, more mature play is to keep playing. And this wasn't even official. This was Ezri Konsa getting mad at his own teammate. Like, buddy, you got the ball still in play here. Let's go.
And he's sprinting by you towards goal.
So I was more upset about Konsa, because turnovers are going to happen, good, bad, or otherwise. That will happen. You will get dispossessed. Bailey's been playing poorly for multiple games now, but guys are going to turn the ball over. You cannot, particularly as a guy that I think they kind of look at. He's not officially a vice captain, but he has been a vice captain. That can't be you. That can't be who you are. You can't be out there yelling at your teammates like that when they make a mistake, because you just compounded it and made it way worse. And then the third, Bogart just his misplay was putting it back into the middle in the first place. So I'll get on him for that. The fact that the ball bounced right off of his shin straight to a United player is not entirely his fault, but he put it in that position.
That's
in the
unlucky,
first place,
but you can't you can't put yourself in that position if
That's
you're him. You have to have the spatial positional awareness that when that ball is fired at you, know who's around you and say, okay, I'm lifting my foot and that's going to roll out to the corner flag and I'm just going to let it go that way.
Right.
Because there's nothing effective that I can do kicking it back in the direction that I'm facing.
What I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, but still, 3 good goals for United, but 3 potentially avoidable goals, for Villa. And like, if anything, this game could have been 5-1, 6-1.
Yeah, I don't know how much play this is getting, but I feel like we're learning a lot about Ezri Konsa over the past couple months. A couple weeks ago, he has a pop at the fans after a loss. Obviously, this one screaming on the pitch at Leon Bailey for someone who's been at the club as long as he has, and as you rightly point out, probably one of the leaders in the locker room. This is really disappointing, eye-opening stuff from Ezri Konsa. I don't really know what to say about it other than that.
I think you do have to kind of wonder who's gonna. I think having McGinn back in the locker room will help because he seems to have a good sense of, and I know we've talked about it before, of when to be harsh and when to be joking and all those sort of things. And most of the time, it goes over well. So I think that you need a player with experience that's been in the club a long time that can kind of know how to play this, and McGinn I think could be that guy, or hope is that guy.
You'd hope so. I don't really want to talk about this too much. We're super long on this game that I don't want to talk about much more. But really weird subs from Unai Emery at the end of the game too.
I thought so too.
Garcia on as a right winger when we're chasing the game. I don't understand that, as opposed to putting him at right back, moving Bogart to midfield and like pushing Luiz up or something. Like I don't know. There are a lot of other things that you could do than put your right back that is pretty bad.
Now you have 2 players out of position, right?
Right, 2 players out of position, and now you really have cut off your right side from doing anything. I really don't understand that from him.
I thought he was too late to Abraham again.
Yep.
That was I know I'm a broken record at this point, but Jesus Christ. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
I really don't. Chris, is there anything good that you're taking from this match whatsoever?
It was a nice goal. The goal they scored was nice.
Fair enough. We got another open play goal. Bad points, Chris. United have overtaken 14 points from us since Michael Carrick came in January. 14 points in pretty much 2 months on the dot.
6 weeks.
Insane. Yeah. I think it is very easy to say you don't really know where the next win is going to come from for Aston Villa in the Premier League. And so I'm going to ask you, Chris, you can choose to answer this as cold water or just straight up, whatever. I alluded to this earlier in the year. You might remember this. When Villa were doing well and we were having all these XG conversation, all this kind of stuff, I believe I asked you, how is this different than Villa under Steven Gerrard? Then throw it out there, hope for a moment of magic, watch Coutinho bang it in from midfield, except that this is working and his did not. And you didn't really have an answer for me in that. So I will ask you this now again. Watching this Villa team, is this as bad as peak Gerrard?
I don't think so. And I'll answer this with in a cold water sense. The results are, and so it's difficult to make this argument from a purely result standpoint.
Can I elaborate on that, Chris, by the way? Because there's a couple things that I think are factoring into this. The lack of bangers and just kind of hoping for magic. But also look at the style of play in the football. Possessional dominance, incredibly narrow. That was a big thing with Steven Gerrard, which is incredibly narrow formation. Inability to break through and just kind of hope that there's one magician at the center of it. In his case, Coutinho, in this case, Morgan Rogers, that's just going to bail you out every week. and then a flailing Ollie Watkins up top.
Yeah. I guess when you put it that way, it is eerily similar. I think maybe I'm allowing the past successes to color my view. But yeah, no, I mean it's about as frustrating a watch as we've seen in recent years. I think that like the most difficult thing about this is that those bangers aren't coming. And I talked about that in one of the most recent pods, that part of the reason those bangers aren't coming is because the shape has gotten even more narrow, and the space to operate is just not there like it used to be. You saw a few moments where Rodgers could cut across in this game, but they were few and far between. And I think that you are right in that something has to change here, and somebody has to recognize that we can't operate this way, because if our best player, which is far and away Morgan Rodgers right now, particularly since Ollie Watkins just refuses to shoot the ball, I think we'd be much better if he actually took shots at the goal. If Rodgers doesn't have the space to operate and can't force defenders toward him, collapse toward him, where he can either shoot or play the ball off and give other runners opportunities, like we have nothing then here, right? So we need to put our best players in good positions, and that's not happening right now. And so, yes, I guess in that sense, yes, it's there. It's very similar to the dark times again with Steven Gerrard, but big key difference being, at least right now, we're sitting in Champions League places, whereas back then we were sitting in Tottenham places.
So the other thing that I do want to mention with this, by the way, because this is starting to get some traction, people are remembering how good our record is with Boubacar Kamara versus without him.
Yep.
And you say that
I don't know what the record is there, but the Yuri Tielemans is such a key thing.
But Kamara in particular.
Yeah.
That being said, Kamara's biggest benefits, I believe, is his ability to shield the back line.
Mm-hmm.
In a team that is not creating anything, Boubacar Kamara is not necessarily a creator. Now I suppose you could make the argument that there is like a downstream impact, that if you have him back there, other guys can kind of hedge being a little bit further forward. So if he's able to win the ball, there are more opportunities for counter and more guys running at the opposite. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think even if Kamara is in this team, the issues that you're mentioning with the structure, with the formation, with the reliance on worldies week in, week out that have really dried up. Sure, Villa are probably a few points better off because we have more draws, but I don't know that we're necessarily creating more goals, more XG, more offensive, more opportunities, more big chances with Kamara in the lineup than with him injured. I don't think that it's as simple as just saying, hey, Kamara's back and everything would have been fine over the past couple months.
No, I agree with that. I do think that Tielemans, like I said, that's one of the reasons I mentioned Tielemans, is because he brings so much to the table in addition to Kamara. I think those two together are a great pairing, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. But his ability to pick out a line-breaking pass is second to none. So losing those two and John McGinn at the same time, again, I don't want to do that pod, because we've talked about no excuses, and so has Unai Emery. So I'm going to hold him to that. No excuses, man. This is the team you got, so you got to play with it, and you got to figure it out. And so far, what we have seen is the same thing over and over and over again with no changing. And it almost seems like a stubbornness now from Unai Emery that we're not necessarily used to, because we're at this point, everybody's talking about it. It's on the national broadcast. It's on the radio. It's on every Villa podcast, including this one that you talk about, where everybody's talking about the lack of width and creativity in the Villa side. And I think those two things are hand in hand. And we're what? like I feel like we're 3 months into this now at this point. If it's not been 3 months, it sure as heck feels like it. So you're welcome for not swearing. But I don't like I don't know what it's going to take to get a change. But again, I think Pau Torres, and I know you can't start him every game, but you can start him on big ones. Pau
Or more
Torres,
games than not, at least.
yes, right. Not half and half. Pau Torres, Tammy Abraham, those two things. Morgan Rogers continuing to be out wide, not at the number 10. That I think is still more effective than what was previously happening. Because at least you give him that opportunity to cut in, like he wants to.
So, Chris, larger implication on the season.
Oh, who cares?
Villa did get lucky again with other teams not taking advantage.
Yeah.
Chelsea obviously lose. Liverpool can only manage a draw against aforementioned Spurs. There are now 8 games remaining.
Yeah.
Villa sit on 51 points.
Yeah.
We talked about what did Villa have, 66 when they qualified for Champions League a couple years ago, as that being an all-time low to
no
qualify
chance we're going to get there, right?
Champions League. Villa aren't getting there, but I don't think Chelsea or Liverpool are getting there either. To be honest, I mean, this could be one that, like, hell, if you cross 62, you might qualify for Champions League this year. So I'm going to ask you. I'm going to set the over under at 9.5 points. Basically, will Villa get to 60 or not? And these are Villa's remaining games and the team's current position. So we will play West Ham, who are in 18th, who look so much better over recent weeks. We'll preview that one shortly, but this is not an 18th place squad when you look at where they've been since the new year. Yeah. Nottingham Forest in 17th, Sunderland in 13th, who was a fellow expected points overperformer who is plummeting back to earth. Fulham in 11th, the dire Tottenham Hotspur in 16th, Burnley in 19th. And then we end the season with Liverpool, who are currently in 5th in a huge 6-pointer, and then City in 2nd. And TBD if that game means anything, whether Arsenal have the title locked up, if City's playing for it, if we already know where we're going to be. Those are Villa's 8 remaining games.
Yep.
So, Chris, I will ask you, is Villa getting over under 9.5 points?
Based on that, you reading that out to me, I say over by half a point. Just
you think they'll get to 10? 3 wins and a draw potentially.
Yeah. I could be wrong, very much based on recent performances. No, but based on where I think they should be and where I think they should be playing and how I think they should be playing, injuries or not, I don't think it's outrageous to say in those 8 games you get 3 wins and a draw, right? Like that is not an outrageous claim with the teams you just ran out, even with West Ham playing very well in 18th place. I'm looking at, there are 3 very winnable games, not including West Ham on that ticket. Right. But
yeah, I'm going to say 8 points if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Maybe 9, but I'm taking the under either way.
So you got,
I think Sunderland and Fulham are wins. And then you're looking at draws in some combination of Forest, Spurs, and Burnley. Yeah. I think you lose West Ham, you lose Liverpool, you lose City, and the way this team is playing, you're probably losing one of those 4.
Yeah,
in the middle.
But so I guess my larger implication on the season is, it's Europa. Like, just throw everything you've got at Europa, because that's going to be your path to qualification.
Well, Chris, that's a great transition that you let us up for. Let's talk about Lille in leg 2. We're not going to do a full preview of this one. If you want to know how Lille play, what we think of them, you can go back to the preview pod that we have out from last week. But Chris, I guess I'll ask you anything that you want to add, mention from leg 1 that you feel like is deserving of any conversation.
No, I don't think so. I think you have 2 teams that struggle to score, and I think you're going to see that play out again.
So I guess what are your expectations for this match?
My expectations are for Villa to sit in and just try and get away with a point, because a point gets you where you need to go. So I think you're going to see an Aston Villa that play extremely compact and just soak up pressure and play on the counter because they're at home, and they'll be able to. And like I always say, nick a goal early and call it a day. What about you?
I think the same, and I think that will be to their detriment. I do think Matty Cash will be back. So, Emmy Cash, Konsa, probably Pau again.
Yep.
And then I don't know that Luka Dean goes 3 in a row, but I
You think
can't
it's
say that
Ian
Ian
Maatsen?
Maatsen has
I think
done
it's Ian
anything to
Maatsen.
displace him. So let's say Ian Maatsen.
Yeah.
I think Louise comes back in, so Onana and Louise. And then in front of them, you'll have McGinn, Buendia, Rogers, Ali, because Unai doesn't seem keen on making any changes there. And I think
but again, if it were me, it'd be Abraham. It'd be Abraham.
Abraham, Buendia would probably come to the bench. I talked through last week a couple different ways that you could utilize McGinn to make this a bit more interesting of a midfield. Hell, you could bring Bogart into midfield and do Bogart, Onana, Louise, or Bogart, Onana, Barkley, or whatever that is, and kind of draw your 10 back to create a little bit more space for Morgan Rogers to kind of roam around. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah, I think it'll be a lot of the same. I think Villa will play extremely conservative. They'll effectively go out in hopes for a 0-0, but I do think Lille will get one, as poor as they are away. And so we're looking at extra time, potentially penalties to settle this one.
And you feel great about that, right? So what do you actually think is going to be the result then?
I think Lille.
Do Aston Villa advance?
You know what? I think it's not going to be pretty. I think we're going to be very nervy like the last time we played Lille, but this is not Lille from a couple years ago. And so I will say that in the end, Villa will advance.
Okay. So you've got Villa advancing. All right. Well, as I told you, I'm going to keep the bit going here. I have a lovely Pinot from Burgundy. This is Domaine Dupré. And I broke it out a little earlier. Smells good. Peppery, but not too spicy on the tannins. Tastes like a 1-1 draw, so Aston Villa advance.
Okay, well, hopefully we're right on this one. We've been right for the past few matches in a row with the losses, albeit not for the scoreline.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're right again in this case.
At least we've got the 1 goal advantage going in. Like that's at home.
This is these are real trying times to be a Villa fan, but we will be back probably Thursday evening in between March Madness games to, by the way, shout out the Quakers qualifying out of the Ivy League. Illinois, we're coming for you, and then UNC after that. But yeah, so we'll be back probably Thursday evening at some point to recap Lille and preview the rest of the Premier League season. Hopefully we are much more happy and jovial than we are right now, but we appreciate you all for sticking with this. Hopefully it was as cathartic for you all as it was for us. And so until next time, as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.